Former CNN anchor Don Lemon is among the latest group of people arrested for disrupting a St. Paul, Minnesota church service earlier this month. This occurs as demonstrators take to the streets in Minneapolis again and elsewhere on a national day of protest over the Trump administration immigration crackdown. Correspondent Brooke Taylor is again in Minneapolis tonight.
The Justice Department sending a strong message. Federal agents arrested former CNN anchor Don Lemon. It comes after he live streamed this.
They cannot pretend to be a house of God.
Anti-ICE protesters storming a church in St. Paul, disrupting services last week. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi called it a coordinated attack and says 3 others were also arrested. DHS says Lemon is charged with conspiracy and interfering with the civil rights of worshipers. In a statement, Lemon's attorney calls the arrest a, quote, unprecedented attack on the First Amendment and says Lemon will fight these charges vigorously. And new developments in the shooting death of Alex Preddy. The Justice Department is opening a federal civil rights investigation.
We're looking at videos, talking to witnesses, trying to understand what happened.
And DHS Secretary Kristi Noem announcing the FBI is now leading the federal investigation, a big shift from Homeland Security investigations.
We will continue to follow the investigation that the FBI is leading and giving them all the information that they need to bring that to a conclusion.
ICE out of Minnesota!
Thousands of anti-ICE protesters marched the streets across Minneapolis today despite freezing temperatures.
What do we want?
The national shutdown protest called for no school, no work, and no shopping.
We want to see actions. We want to see ICE out of the state.
But for now, President Trump says Operation Metro Surge is here to stay.
So you're not pulling back?
No, not at all.
The man he put in charge, Border Czar Tom Homan, says he's focused on operations targeting criminal illegal migrants like this one. An ICE elite team serving a warrant at a home in Minnesota for an alleged sex offender and convicted smuggler.
We want to keep our country safe. We'll do whatever we can to keep our country safe.
Meanwhile, Lemon just made his first court appearance in downtown LA at federal court. He was released without bail. A judge told him he can't contact any of the victims and he'll have to appear at a federal court here in Minneapolis on February 9th, Brett.
All right, Brooke Taylor live in Minneapolis. Brooke, thank you.
The question is, Professor, are these charges something? I believe the FACE Act violation, again, indicted by a grand jury, are they something that carry real jeopardy here for Don Lemon?
Well, first of all, the FACE Act itself does pose jeopardy for all those arrested. The Attorney General of Minnesota, Ellison, said that this only applies to abortion clinics. That was completely false. It does apply to places of worship like this. And in fact, when they have applied it to abortion clinics, including Ellison, they have adopted the broadest possible interpretation of those criminal provisions. Now, with regard to Don Lemon, I think that he has a claim here that he was acting as a journalist. And I think a lot of judges are going to find that persuasive because they tend to avoid really hitting that tripwire when it comes to journalism. Now, the problem, of course, is that Don Lemon really stretches that meaning of a journalist. He's one of these journalists that believe in advocacy journalism, which blurs, again, the line of what is a journalist and what is an advocate. So that's going to end up having to be litigated. Some of us have written for years, I just wrote a book on this not long ago, really contesting advocacy journalism as killing journalism in the United States. He is really the face of that movement.
Yeah, and you bring up sort of the career path of Don Lemon, but there's also the actions that day and whether or not those were the actions of someone simply chronicling the event or someone serving as a hype man for the event, and whether or not carrying a camera or a phone, for that matter, into a protest or riot or disruption absolves you of the actions of that moment.
Yeah, that actually has been an issue that's come up repeatedly now, particularly Antifa, but a lot of far-left groups have been defining some of their members as journalists or observers, even though they're very much participants. For example, Good, who was the first of those two shootings, insisted that she was a legal observer. I've represented legal observers in protest cases, and she was not acting as a legal observer. She was a participant. And you have the same things happening with some people who don vests saying press when they really are part of these groups. So courts have had to work through this by looking at their conduct, not how they define themselves, but what did they do? Now, that doesn't mean that Don Lemon cannot make the case as a journalist. Courts are going to take that very seriously, but we're going to have to look very closely at the basis for his arrest, why there was a finding of probable cause, and what was the conduct that was being cited in that proceeding.
All right, Professor Jonathan Turley, thanks for breaking that down for us today.
Thanks.
This is a slam dunk. Journalists cannot break the law and then when they get caught say, it's fine, I'm innocent, I was just filming it. That's just not how it goes. Imagine your house gets broken into at 2 a.m. and Don Lemon is interviewing you in your pajamas while the house is getting ransacked and your kids are crying. You can't be there. It's so obvious. This guy was premeditated. He conspired. He knew the target ahead of the time. And then when he gets in there, he actively encourages the disruption. They intimidate everybody, get along on the side of the pews, box them in, and then start screaming at the children, your parents are going to rot in hell. They were yelling to the parents, this is the house of the devil. And so Don Lemon the whole time is watching. He's like, yep, kids are crying, they're traumatized, but you know what? It's got to happen. This is nuts. If this had happened at a synagogue, a mosque, forget about it. Don Lemon gets in the pastor's face and starts threatening him and intimidating him. Kids were screaming because they thought their parents were going to get shot. Some of the parents couldn't get access to their children because they didn't have a way to get out of there. They had no escape plan. Eventually, they just fled for safety. So Don Lemon, the whole time, is waxing poetic as people are crying and thinking they're about to be punched in the face. Now, and then he goes out and he sells the video on his website. People on January 6th were arrested, actual journalists, and they didn't even go inside the Capitol. And for all the journalists that are out there saying oh, he's a journalist, no journalist has ever done this before. This is the first time anybody invaded a church, shot it, and then tried to get off because they said they were a journalist. I can't believe he thinks this is fine. I think he's actually going to do time.
Harold, in the charging documents, it references what Jesse was talking about, which is that Lemon allegedly communicated quite heavily with those individuals that organized storming the church. And to take Jesse's analogy a bit further, if you're filming the burglary, you wait outside. You don't storm the front door and interview the screaming child while the bedroom is ransacked. A lot of people were frightened that day. And more importantly, their service worshiping the Lord was interrupted, which is staunchly unconstitutional.
You're right about that part. It's good to be with everybody. It seems like it's been a little while longer than it has. I'd say two things about Don Lemon, because I want to talk about Mr. Holman in a positive way. Let the chips fall where they may. Don Lemon, he's got a great lawyer, Abby Lowell. Everybody has the presumption of innocence, as we all know around the table, when these things happen. And we'll have to see if the facts are what you and Greg so eloquently said. He will have a challenge. I want to get to Tom Holman for one moment, because I think we're at a moment here where both sides, where cooler heads are starting to prevail. There's been an admission on the side of the White House that maybe some of the ways they were going about this first was maybe too aggressive. The wacky liberals need to understand what they're doing in terms of some of these tactics in protesting. It's not working. Everybody's trying to push a reset. Now, there's some who are saying they don't believe that Tom Holman is serious and that he can be trusted and that President Trump can be trusted. If we judge everything that way, we will never come to agreement or reach some kind of reconciliation about things if we just mistrust everybody, if everybody might have been wrong before, everybody's now trying to come together. So if you're in the problem-solving business or you want to problem solve, you got to be in that business, and you got to be willing to reconcile and forgive. Two, Mr. Holman, I think, is right when he says that the jails ought to give up the criminals, ought to give up those who are national security and public safety threats in exchange for a different federal law enforcement posture, radically different federal law enforcement posture there in Minneapolis. I'd say to those who, again, are suspicious of that, you can't be suspicious and not want to engage and try to find an answer if you're serious about trying to find an answer. And that goes for both sides of it. Now, where Mr. Holman is also right, people who are in this country illegally are guests, and they're trying to find a way to be here permanently. And if they commit a crime, a violent crime, they should be arrested and, frankly, deported. Where we have a difference, and I have a difference perhaps with some around the table and even some in the administration, is the hierarchy in which you do this. So you just go and pick up people who are here paying taxes, raising their kids, who may be here illegally. Do you deport them, or do we find a different way? But we'll get to that conversation. I would urge Democrats, Republicans, and particularly the leadership of Minneapolis to take Mr. Holman at his word. I've been critical of him on this show in the past. I said sometimes I thought he tried to do a Clint Eastwood approach to this, but he's actually doing this the right way. And I hope that Mr. Fry, and I hope that Mr. Ellison, I hope that Governor Walz give him the benefit of the doubt.
And certainly under the Obama administration, he deservedly so received awards for his service, so bipartisan support for Holman's work. I note that as we watch the live protests,
yeoman's work.
as we watch the live protests, we're seeing, apparently it's now broadened in aperture because it's not just anti-ICE, it's now pro-Palestinian. I mean,
well, it's good to know that the protesters are so focused and so on message. You know, that's just incredible discipline. Are they going to trot out Greta Thunberg here any moment to call for the global intifada, and then maybe cry some tears for those poor polar bears just off the shores of Greenland?
Good afternoon. Happy Friday. Live from Texas, this is the Will Cain Show. We start here. You're looking live now at Minnesota. People are skipping work, skipping school, not to relax, not to vacation. They are protesting, and it's happening all across the country. A so-called national shutdown to oppose ICE and President Trump. And President Trump has a message for those protesters.
Do these people really want to have rapists? Do they really want to have drug dealers and people from prisons and murderers? Do they really want to have them in the community? You know, it's really insurrectionists and agitators, and they're paid. We had a border that was so bad, so open, where 25 million people came in over a period of 4 years, and now nobody comes in. Nobody even tries to come in. And I can only say, I think we'll say it very plainly, elections have consequences.
This isn't ending anytime soon. Right now, those live pictures are protests spreading across the country. These types of things have an ability to spiral, and we're going to keep our eye on it throughout the hour. Now, at the core of all of this is the defense of people in this country illegally. But if you ask, perhaps some of the people on your screen right now, if you ask the people on the streets or you ask their leaders, like Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry, they can't even tell you how many illegal immigrants live in, say, Minneapolis.
How many do you believe you have in your city at this particular moment in time?
How many people that are undocumented or living in Minneapolis right now?
Undocumented, yes. Do you have any idea?
I don't know. I couldn't. I don't really have a guess as to how many presently are here. I do know that I think that the federal administration just got it kind of wrong.
That would be a fascinating series of questions to follow up on. How many would be too many? If you don't know, I wonder if there's a threshold. Is there a breaking point? Is there a marker, a border, a sovereignty that somehow, at some point, in some way, is inviolable? Now, that answer, those questions, would fall on deaf ears when it comes to most celebrities. We've been cataloging over the last couple of days some of the outlandish things that have been said by, quote unquote, the famous, as our country continues to spiral as it is in Minnesota. But as we've cataloged, we've got to add one more name to the list: Kathy Griffin.
I think the murder of Renee Good, the murder of Alex Preddy, putting children on planes and taking them to detention centers, which are really concentration camps. Call it what it is. They're concentration camps in the United States of America in 2026. It's time to talk to the neighbors in real life. It's time to talk to your neighbors, find out if they're MAGA or not. Sorry, but we have to know who's on our team and start to plan.
Now, I recognize that I, like Kathy Griffin, are being a little sloppy with my language. She calls detention centers concentration camps, and I call Kathy Griffin famous. We all need to be a little more precise and specific in our word choice. But she's not the only quasi-famous celebrity center stage today. We can't forget about Don Lemon, arrested by federal agents in connection with the Minneapolis church storming earlier this month. A grand jury indicting Lemon on federal civil rights charges. He's expected this hour to walk out of the courthouse. But this is a big day not just for justice, but a big day for Don Lemon. One could argue this is the culmination of his life's work. Today is his Mount Everest of relevance. In his own mind, I'm sure today he sits aside MLK and Nelson Mandela. I'm sure somewhere ChatGPT is being fed the prompt to create the Netflix series, The United States versus Don Lemon. Today is your day, Don. I'm almost happy for you, Don. Now, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche was asked today about Lemon.
Do you have a reaction to the arrest of Don Lemon overnight?
Do you have a reaction to what?
To Don Lemon's arrest overnight?
Do I have a reaction to it? I don't know what that means. What are you looking for me to do? Jump up and down? No, I don't have a reaction to it.
Meanwhile, Democrats keep pushing their anti-ICE agenda, but some won't say it straight. It's so unserious that they have announced it, for example, on Comedy Central.
Allow any ICE raids to be staged from state properties. And we are also going to be standing up a portal so people can upload all their cell phone videos and alert people. Like if you see an ICE agent in the street, get your phone out.
Yes.
We want to know.
Kathy Griffin wants you to turn in your neighbors like the lives of others in East Germany in the 1980s and 70s. And Mikey Sherrill wants you to turn in ICE agents with your cell phone. It's also unserious. But by the way, Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota says that it's unserious, the idea that ICE is real law enforcement.
This idea, oh, you can't criticize ICE because you're criticizing law enforcement. They are not law enforcement. They are not professionals. How dare they slander that? And you can have J.D. Vance and you can have these people slander my police, saying, well, if Minneapolis and Minnesota's police would help us more, whatever, it's because we're professionals and we're taking care of the people.
It's barely worthy of a serious response. But here is something that is worthy of seriousness. It is House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. I want you to hear what he says here about DHS Secretary Kristi Noem.
We intend to proceed with impeachment proceedings if Kristi Noem is not fired. Kristi Noem is a complete and total embarrassment. She's a disgrace. She's got to go. We are dead serious. She needs to be put on ICE permanently. She's got to go.
She needs to be put on ICE permanently. If you want to dismiss that as a pun, don't forget the context in which it exists, with Democrats calling ICE Gestapo, with them calling Donald Trump Hitler, with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Demanding the DHS secretary be put on ICE permanently is disqualifying for the House Minority Leader. Disqualifying. No longer, in my mind, capable of responsibly holding elected office. Let's go back to Todd Blanche. Today, he said the DOJ is looking at left-wing groups as part of the investigation into the killing of Alex Preddy.
The nexus of left-wing groups, this DOJ said that that's something that you guys were concerned about. Are you following money? Are you looking at a potential that all of this may be related somewhere?
I mean, yes.
If you want certain laws reformed, then take it up with Congress. Again, ICE is making this up. They're enforcing laws enacted by Congress and signed by presidents.
The border czar also shared this exclusive video with Fox News. It shows an operation that led to the arrest of a Mexican national who is an accused sex offender, I should say, and convicted human smuggler. And this is the carrying out of that operation in Minnesota on Wednesday. Chad Wolf, former acting DHS secretary, now Homeland Secretary, a security chair at the America First Policy Institute. Chad, good to have you here. Let me first get your reaction to this announcement by Todd Blanche that there is a civil rights investigation underway as well into the case with the killing, I should say, of Alex Preddy.
Well, look, I think that tracks with what the president and others have said, which is there is an investigation not only into that incident, but obviously into an earlier one as well. So the investigation will play out. There's DHS is investigating, the FBI is investigating, and so that process is going to unfold. And we've heard the president say that he wants that investigation to be exhaustive, really to get down to it. So I don't think what Todd Blanche said was surprising in any sense. I think he was reiterating the work that the men and women of the FBI do in such an investigation, as well as the Department of Justice.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth mentioning that in the context of the Epstein investigation, Todd Blanche wanted to make it very clear that the Department of Justice takes any sort of child predator or human trafficking case very seriously, and we see some of those actually, being carried out in the work that DHS is doing on the ground in Minnesota for sure, and in other places as well. When you look at this video, Chad, that was released by Tom Homan of the operation that took place, is there anything that you see that looks any different from what we have seen in some of these videos, which, some of which have raised some questions about how operations were going in Minnesota? Do you see any difference in the new release of video in terms of procedure?
No, not specific. Yeah, no, not specifically. Look, when they go out into a criminal operation, you're going to have DHS assets and personnel making sure that they're prepared for that. It depends on the target. It depends on the nature of that individual, who is also perhaps around that individual. Have they witnessed weapons and others? So, when you see officers there in vest and tactical gear, that's for their protection because, again, they're going after a criminal target who could be dangerous, who could be on the run. There's a variety of different things going on there. So that is very common, very standard procedure, depending on that target. So nothing in that video jumps out at me. And I think that's the normal course of business for ICE.
Yeah. Tom Homan has been very clear that he wants the focus to be on criminal apprehensions, people who have criminal records, what I think most people have come to know as the worst of the worst. What do you make of his focus on that and maybe on less of a broader sweep?
Yeah, I think, well, two things that Tom mentioned in his press conference yesterday was, in fact, that going after the worst of the worst, and indicated that there were plenty of targets there in the Minneapolis, Minnesota area to do just that. And with that agreement of being able to go into county or city jails to pick up those individuals, I think that's where the focus will be. And I think that's what we've heard the president say. But in that press conference, Tom also indicated that, look, they're not going to ignore the law, that if they come across individuals that don't have a legal right to be here, even if they've been here 10 years, that they're going to execute the law. We saw what Joe Biden did by excluding whole classes of individuals from any type of enforcement action. And I would argue that that caused one of the biggest border crises that we've seen, because that sent a signal to individuals to come, and as long as you don't commit another crime here in the United States, well, then you're going to be exempt from deportation, and it's the wrong signal to send.
True. I'm curious what you think of, I spoke with Leader Jeffries yesterday, and he, there are certain parameters that the Democrats are saying they want in order to reopen the government, in changes in how DHS functions, including no masks, body cameras, more training, codes of conduct. What do you make of those requirements on their part?
Well, I find it interesting, right? Because if we look at what ICE does around the country, if you have local cooperation, there is no chaos. There are safe interactions. It's only when sanctuary cities put up policies that block ICE, and then there's chaos. And so what the Democrats' response to that is I'm going to put up policies that block ICE, and then I'm going to require reforms to ICE. It doesn't make any sense to me. I think if you wanted to do something around trying to make safer interactions with ICE, if that's your goal, then you would actually give them more access and demand that cooperation with locals. That's how you get to safety. It's not putting all of these ridiculous, quote, reforms, or I would say limitations on what ICE can do, as well as making their job unsafe, such as removing masks when they're constantly being doxxed and having their lives threatened.
Yeah, Lindsey Graham agrees with you on that, and he wants to see the end of sanctuary cities and believes that it would go a long way to making these situations safer. And we certainly see that it's very, very different in other cities than it is in the state of Minnesota. Chad, thank you very much. Chad Wolf, good to see you as always. Thank you, sir.
And to a Fox News alert, journalist Don Lemon has been arrested in connection with an anti-ICE protest at a church in St. Paul, Minnesota. Bill Melugin joins us now with more on this breaking news. Hey, Bill.
Yeah, Charlie, good morning to you. Our colleague David Spunt and I getting this breaking news from multiple law enforcement sources just minutes ago, confirming that former CNN anchor Don Lemon has been arrested by federal agents in Los Angeles just after midnight this morning at a hotel. This obviously all in connection with that storming of a church in St. Paul, Minnesota by that group of anti-ICE agitators. Now remember, the feds had gone to judges to try to get Don Lemon arrested before. They went to a magistrate judge in Minnesota who didn't sign off on an arrest warrant for him. Then it went to a judge above him. He didn't sign off on an arrest warrant for him. Then it went to an appeals court. They also decided not to sign off for an arrest warrant for him. So there was experts who were predicting that perhaps the feds would go to a grand jury. It remains to be seen if that's what happened here, but we can confirm that Don Lemon was arrested in Los Angeles by federal agents just after midnight Los Angeles time at a hotel. Now, typically, standard procedure with an arrest like this is the defendant will likely make their first court appearance sometime the same day. So there's a chance we may see Don Lemon make his first court appearance in Los Angeles sometime today. But obviously, this is going to grab all sorts of headlines. 3 other protesters from that church storming, have already been arrested, including who the feds say was the organizer of that protest. The woman in the middle there is a school board member in St. Paul, and then the mugshot on the right is an online personality / agitator, if you want to call him that. He's known as the Woke Farmer. Those were the 3 people that the feds had already arrested, but we have confirmed that Don Lemon has now been arrested in Los Angeles in connection with that viral incident. We all saw the video of it that spread and drew widespread condemnation. The feds have been going after these people on FACE Act violations. So this is still breaking news. Once we get more details about the potential charges here, a court appearance, we'll, of course, update our viewers, guys.
Really appreciate it. Of course, if it was a grand jury that did indict him, that's pretty unimpeachable. Bill Melugin, thank you so much.
Yep.
Look at Minneapolis. We have crime down there because we took out thousands of people, despite all the mess and everything else. But do these people really want to have rapists? Do they really want to have drug dealers and people from prisons and murderers? Do they really want to have them in the community? It's really insurrectionists and agitators, and they're paid. And you can tell a lot of reasons. Number one, they're professionals, with their mouth. But they're also, you look at the signs are all professionally made.
Meanwhile, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche announcing today that the DOJ is looking into some of the radical left-wing groups the president referenced as part of their investigation into the killing of Alex Preddy. Now, he also confirmed a civil rights investigation into Preddy's death is underway.
This is something that we're investigating, and we are. That's what we would always do in circumstances like this. And so there's an investigation that's ongoing, which I'm not going to talk about.
Are you looking at a nexus of left-wing groups? This DOJ said that that's something that you guys were concerned about. Are you following money? Are you looking at a potential that all of this may be related somewhere?
I mean, yes.
Get your suit fixed.
And at any moment, disgraced ex-CNN anchor Don Lemon making his first court appearance in Los Angeles after getting arrested. A grand jury indicting Lemon, charging him with federal civil rights crimes for storming that church in St. Paul, Minnesota during a Sunday service. Lemon's lawyer, Abby Lowell, releasing a statement saying this, quote, Don has been a journalist for 30 years, and his constitutionally protected work in Minneapolis was no different than what he has always done. But the prosecution is arguing here, Greg, that indeed it's different in that it violated the FACE Act, and he also conspired to do so with a group of people that are also in court as we speak.
Yeah, from my understanding, Lemon got arrested for the FACE Act, and it's not that FACE Act, Jesse. That's legal. That's legal now.
Oh, God, we've come a long way.
No, he is guilty, and I'll tell you why he's guilty, because once I tell you why, it's so obvious. Number one, he was there at the beginning. You can get the video. He knew all the details. He worked with the fellow activists. He helped them out. He even brought them coffee and donuts. But the most obvious thing is he could have waited an hour. Religious services only last 1 hour. So if he was a reporter, he could very easily have waited to interview people. But therefore, his motive was, in fact, to impede the service. And that is a violation of, again, the FACE Act. I think this is the best thing that has ever happened to Don Lemon. No career, no reputation, no friends. I just hope this doesn't inspire copycat crimes, with Jim Acosta, Keith Olbermann, and Joy Reid. They're going to be stampeding and breaking into all kinds, but of course they won't do a mosque. No. Get their asses kicked. But if you take it's a dance between the agitator and the media. They both know what they're doing. The agitator creates instability, and they even use whistles, which nobody seems to talk about, but that's meant to create instability, mental instability in law enforcement. It's a known tactic. So they taunt, they're aggressive, they're violent, and then when the media appears, they declare victim status. They're what's called a cry bully. So they get you all riled up, and then they fall down like a pro soccer player, when a ball comes rolling at them. The media did the same thing in the Summer of Love, where they just airbrush a filter of romance over insanity.
Hey, everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.